To understand chemistry, it is essential to understand chemistry nomenclature. In this video, we'll look at how to name ionic compounds. Luckily, the naming process for ionic compounds is straightforward once you understand it. To review, an ionic compound has two parts, the positive cation and the negative anion. When you name an ionic compound, you simply name the cation and the anion. For a type 1 ionic compound, where the ions are monatomic, the cation uses the same name as its element. So magnesium would just be magnesium, and lithium would just be lithium. The anion uses the same root as its element, but ends with the suffix "ide". Chlorine becomes chloride, and sulfur becomes sulfide. Sometimes it's hard to tell exactly what to call the anion, like in the case of oxygen and oxide. That means a bit of practice can be good with these. As an example, let's look at table salt. Table salt consists of a sodium cation and a chlorine anion. The sodium cation keeps its element's name, and the chlorine anion uses the suffix "ide" to become chloride. Thus, the name of the compound is sodium chloride. However, there are some elements which can form multiple cations. That means the same two elements can form multiple different compounds. In order to stay specific, we have to specify which cation is in the compound. To do that, we put a Roman numeral in parentheses next to the element's name. The Roman numeral represents the charge of the cation. For example, iron can form cations with a positive charge of 2 or 3. When we write the name of a cation, we write iron 2 when it has a charge of 2, or iron 3 when it has a charge of 3. Finally, there are some ions that are made of multiple atoms called polyatomic ions. While the previous ions were given names based on their elements, polyatomic ions can have multiple elements. Unfortunately, the only way to know the names of polyatomic ions is to memorize them. Here is a chart of the most common polyatomic ions to get you started.